Hey there, Dr. Rock here, and welcome back to another episode of Rock On Live. And I am Dr. Rock. I am a lifestyle medicine physician. I help people make lifestyle changes to prevent, treat, reverse disease, and I would say, more importantly, to live the life that they want to live, to live a fulfilling life, to do the things that they want to be able to do that bring them joy and fulfillment. And that's the reason we have good health, right? That's the reason we have good health, is so that we can do the things that we want to do. So help people do that. And super excited to be here with you. If you're watching live, if you're watching recorded, I'm here every Wednesday. If you read my newsletter, and if you're not a member of my newsletter, go to my website. You can sign up. Rock On every Monday. Get a little piece of reflection and awareness action that you can do to be more aware in the week ahead, and then a kindness opportunity, something you can do to be kind to yourself or others. And this week I was reflecting on fatherhood and being a father, given it was just Father's Day. And, you know, Father's Day is, I know, a made up holiday, but it also has the word father in it. And it gave me a chance to sort of just reflect on being a dad, and really the profound impact that my children have had on my life, and just being a father to them, and how I really started looking at my life and my choices in a different way. And that happened just right when my first child was born, my daughter was born, and I was in fellowship. And I've written about this as well, and maybe heard me talk about this. I thought I wanted to be a kidney specialist. I mean, I really liked nephrology. Like in the hospital, I found it super interesting. And if you know a kidney, my wife is a kidney specialist. Okay, so if you know a kidney specialist, um, I say this in a very endearing way. They're super nerdy, and like very like smart and like numbers, and I'm like that. So I was like, oh, that's what I should do. And um, and I really did like kidney medicine, especially in the hospital. But then once I went to fellowship, very quickly I realized that I didn't want to be a kidney specialist. I found the medicine very interesting, but the practice of it didn't resonate with me for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into now. And I didn't want to be in academic medicine anymore. I wanted to go work somewhere in the community and take care of people, and solely focus on that, you know? At least that's what I knew for myself at that time. And so I was feeling very guilty. How could I leave my fellowship? How could I let down my mentors? And we had my daughter. We had my daughter just a few months into that year. And it's interesting how that just puts all your priorities, it can certainly put all your priorities into focus. And I knew, it's like almost right after she was born, I was like, I know what I need to do. And I'm not going to get into exactly what the steps I took and whatnot. But basically, I made the decision to leave fellowship, and that was one of the hardest decisions that I ever made. And I found the inspiration from my daughter and from becoming a father. And so today I'm going to talk about that, like just not my specific story, but just how certain life events and moments can have a very outsized impact on us. And I like to say, and that's the name of this session or this talk or whatever, this live stream is, is that they have a ripple effect, that certain life events can have a ripple effect or a butterfly effect, and it's like a ripple in a pool, a drop of water dropping into a pool, and then it's just that little drop in the center, right? But then you look at the reverberations in the water and how if it's a still pool, how far that one little drop causes all these ripples and reverberations to go throughout. And it's like that one thing then rippled into another thing, another thing, another thing. And think about all the people that get impacted by that one thing. Um, so I'll give you another example. Um, yeah, also related to um, fatherhood, right? And so also I wrote about in my newsletters. My wasn't actually the birth of my, although the birth of my third child, birth of all my children, and all my children have had, this impact in various ways. But I can, it's like I can pinpoint these moments where it's like, oh, okay. So the birth of my third child, um, the announcement that we were expecting a third child, I should say, that was probably the ripple moment. And I remember just feeling so overwhelmed in that moment and scared, and like I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. That was unexpected. My son, my second child, was 9 months old, and I've reflected on this before. Like I was in a state of overwhelm. I was certainly not living or eating a healthy lifestyle. So my body was constantly under stress. I wasn't sleeping well. And this was only I felt like at the time adding fuel to the fire. And it's hard, it's hard to acknowledge that, but that that's, if I'm being honest, that's how I felt. I can look at that now and say, like, what would I say to me this 8 years ago, and now almost 9 years ago now? What would I say to that? You know, you this is a gift. This is a blessing. Like, if all these things that hmm, that I didn't, you know, that I wasn't saying to myself back then. But shortly after I got the news, and I was freaking out, and I think I was just adding a lot of anxiety to my wife, who I think wanted to celebrate this news and could see how, like, upsetting it was for me. Um, anyway, I talked to one of my best friends who said that to me. He said, this is a blessing. This is a gift. And he also said, you need to grow up. And at the time, I didn't really, question that. I think I heard what he said, and I really changed my mindset in the moment. But it probably also planted this seed. Like, what is it, first of all, that I'm unhappy about? Why am I unhappy? Like, if I could go back in time when I was younger and write out exactly like how I wanted my future to unfold, it had unfolded that way, right? I had this loving wife and kids and a nice home, and you know, I was a doctor, and I had a good job, and And then if I ask myself, like, why are you unhappy? Um, I didn't have an answer, but it sent me on a quest to figure out how that life might be different. And that's how I ultimately discovered meditation and how I built the awareness in my life to start making more changes. And over time, made very significant changes. And so I think about that conversation with my friend a lot. I think about the shift in my mindset that happened because of that um, conversation. So there are these moments, and then all the things that rippled from that, all the things that changed in my life from that, all the people that were impacted and have been impacted and will be impacted. I sit here now as someone who helps people make lifestyle changes. And if you had told that to me 10 years ago, I would have laughed. How could I, the person that revels in his gluttony, in his hedonistic tendencies, like how am I going to be the one doing this? So it's power. So these moments can be powerful, and they can change the trajectory of one's life. And if I'm being honest, this is why I sit here week after week, write week after week. Um, so I always say when I'm sharing it on any of the platforms I'm on, I say I'm sharing this to ripple some positive energy, some kindness into your week. Because I think about that, I think if somebody reads this or watches this and it leads to some insight or some awareness about their own life that leads to some shift in their behavior and their mindset, it, it the ripple effect there, this butterfly effect is another way of calling it, how it influences that individual and then their family and then their friends and then even their community, the people they take care of. So that's that's why I do what I do, to potentially, create that ripple in your life and the lives of the people that are important to you. Okay, I'll then tell you some practical tips that you can use to embrace the butterfly effect in your own life. So here's some practical tips. Um, the first one is about being mindful. And what do I mean by that? I mean being present, being aware of what is going on in the present moment and holding it without judgment or attachment. So how you cultivate that from you can cultivate that from regular meditation. You can cultivate that from what recent podcast guest Jordana Confino said, stealth mindfulness. I really like that. Stealth mindfulness is when you're just doing anything. You're just doing anything and you're going to say, like you're washing the dishes, and you're going to say, okay, my intention while I wash the dishes is to really connect with or focus on the sensation of the water. Anytime I feel the water on my hands, anytime I get distracted, think about something, I'm just going to go back to that sensation of the water. And what does it feel like? What does my skin feel like? What is the temperature? However you want to experience that. That's a mindfulness session. That's a practice right there. You're doing that so that when you're in, for example, a conversation with somebody, that you can practice what one of our other podcast guests, Coach Meg, says, relational flow. That is getting in the flow state in conversation. Sorry if you can hear my dog. He's a guard dog. Okay. So that is being mindful. That's one practical tip. Another practical tip is to have regular moments where you reflect. So you're going to have a lot of conversations. I always say, like, I've seen talks, like I've gone to conferences and I've seen a talk where while I'm watching the talk, it's like hitting me so hard, like my I'm getting so much insight in that moment. And I will now, if I'm noticing that, I will ask myself, like, right afterwards, like, oh, was that a transformational talk? Like, was that, like, is this a, and I'm not going to look for evidence like whether or not it was, but I ask myself that because I recognize, oh, that was a profound experience for me just now, sitting there and listening. So I should reflect on the kind of the impact that might have on me. Yeah, but just taking some time to reflect on significant events and the impact on your life. Okay. Tip number 3 is to embrace change. So don't be afraid to make change. I, you know, that is to say that an impactful moment, conversation, or event or person has an impact in so much as change happens as a result of that. And so, the impact is the degree of change. And so that is your openness and willingness to make change. So it's really like checking in with yourself. It's also a readiness. It's definitely a readiness to make change. And it's also dependent on what we're talking about. Changing your diet is very different than walking more, is very different than starting a meditation practice. They're different things. One may be more important to you, for example. One might seem more meaningful to you, and so that can affect your motivation. But just being open to making change and recognizing that when you make change, it can be challenging at first. It can be, you know, it's not that, change is hard. It can be. I like to say that you can make changes in a way that they're kind. You can make changes that are good for you, that also feel good. You can make changes. In fact, I think you should make changes that feel good because then you're going to want to do them. But it's still different. It's still not what you're used to. It's still going to require more thinking than what you're used to. So in that way, it may feel uncomfortable and it may feel challenging at times. And so you'd acknowledge that, okay, this is going to feel different, maybe a little uncomfortable, don't know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to have to iterate a little bit. I'm going to have to figure out how to do these things in a way that is sustainable for me and enjoyable. And the first go, because somewhere we developed this belief, Jordana was saying this in our conversation, our recent conversation. She said, somewhere we've developed this belief as human beings that we have to be able to do everything on the first go perfectly. And if we can't, or we don't, then either we shouldn't try or, we should give up. And, that's just not how change works. You think about the things that you've changed in your life, the things you've learned, the skills you've learned, the things you've done in your life. It was never one go. It was always many goes. and many iterations. And the times you did it, you didn't do it because you did it because there was something pulling you forward to go and do that next go. There's something you really, really wanted to learn. It was really important to you. Okay. The last tip is just to share your journey. So this is again like, well, it's what I'm doing right now, but it's when something has an impact on you, I think about how it can have an impact on others. If something had a positive impact on you, then if I go to a talk, I went to go see Michelle Seeger, recent podcast guest, uh, speak and share how, you know, most people look at movement and exercise as a chore. And when you shift and look at it as a gift, those are the people who consistently exercise. And then suddenly that was a light bulb moment for me. I was there sitting there and I was like, oh my gosh, my whole life I have treated this as a chore. And my whole life I have I have resisted exercise because I think of it as a chore. And it's just how it changed me and how it's changed my relationship with movement and exercise. And that's why I talk about it. I tell people that's why I had her on my podcast. That's why I sought her out to share that message so more people could learn that. Because the more and more people that learn that, more people are going to be moving because it feels good. Their health will improve, their relationships will improve, their mood will improve, and that'll just ripple into this world. So many good things will ripple into this. So share. When you have profound impact from something, share that with others. You will inspire others. Okay, that's all I have for today. So thank you for joining me. And if you have your own transformation or transformative experiences that have had impact on you, please share. I love it if you're watching right now, feel share, or if you're watching recorded, share in the comments. And I will draw inspiration from that. So I'd love it if you share. And if you're interested in learning more about what I do, you can visit my website, rockyourlife.com. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I will see you back here next time. And